You're watching Pyro Media Network.
I could be running around chasing you, but I won't. Cause I got better things to do. Rather spend my precious time chasing somebody who loves me too. If I got $1 for every time you slam the door, I would be the richest girl alive, life. If you hadn't run away every time I asked you stay, you would sleep right next to me tonight. And you didn't know me, all you wanted was a game to play, and you couldn't handle that I had my ways. Around your mind tricks and your side chicks, I'm a winner, babe. But you didn't win this, it's a part of the game. That you're an enemy I held too close.
Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience is fruitful. Please feel free to visit our website to find out how you can join our growing family. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. Also, share so others may enjoy as well. And we hope you would consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
Hey. Happy Friday, Junior. I'm so excited. It is Thursday, and Thursdays are my favorite because that means we finna go right up into this weekend, and I'm gonna get to relax a little bit, take a little nap, sleep late. You know, last weekend I was so tired that I didn't wake up until 1:30 p.m. on Saturday. I said, what in the world? Clearly my body needed the rest. Anyway, happy Friday, Junior. I am Dr. Nicole D. Vick of Nicole D. Vick Live. Every Thursday evening, I come to you live to bring you important issues in the Black community from a social justice, public health perspective. That's the only way I don't see things no other kind of way. So that's how I'm going to bring it to you. It just is what it is. And I'm so happy to have you here. How are you? I hope you are doing well. I'm doing all right. If you follow me on social media, you saw that this one right here, we getting real close to letting that walker go and heading toward a cane. I'm so excited. I don't know what to do with myself. I saw my physical therapist this morning and she was like, okay, one of the things you're going to have to do, you're going to have to let that wheelchair go. So I have a wheelchair in the house. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's gotten a little exciting because I can just kind of sit in it and I can kind of roll around the house and do stuff like cook my food. And she was like, nope, you need to be on your feet, ma'am. So I said, you got to say no more, say less. Let me slip on support shoes so that I can start walking more. I'm gonna also try to figure out how to get outside and walk up and down the street. If you know me, you've been to my house. I have a kind of a curve. It's kind of hard to get to the street. I'll just say that. And so we're going to try to figure out how I can get down to the street so I can do walking a little bit more. The other thing I'll say, I was told I can start driving. So I went to get Felicia. Felicia is my car. I got Felicia all ready to go, got her repaired. Thankfully, all she needed was a battery. She needed a little bit of a heartbeat, get herself going. And oil change and like those little filter things cleaned up, and she was good to go. I'm so happy because I have a car that is kind of expensive, and when stuff be wrong, I have to put her on a payment plan because I can't pay for it. So thankfully all it was that, and I was like, oh, thank you. I actually got her detailed today, and this weekend I'm gonna have either my daughter or my brother help me kind of get reacclimated to driving. So honestly, I might drive down to the sidewalk and then walk. That sounds crazy, but that's how my house is set up. It's kind of wild. Anyway, let's get into tonight's episode. I have a special guest. I love her. We have been talking about some business type stuff over the last few months, but it came to mind, I need to talk to her about what's going on in this industry. We are both public health experts, public health professionals, and we are witnessing in real time public health history happen. Like, what is going on? You've also seen, if you follow me talk about, wait a minute, everybody's a little surprised at what's happening. And for me, I'm like, no, this system is just defaulting to its factory settings. It's going back to what it was in the beginning. So we're going to talk about what's happening. We're going to talk about what this is going to, like, what are the history books going to say about what's happening right now? And then we're also going to talk about something that she is working on with her business that she has, and really why and what she's doing is important, and why you need to be thinking about research and contributing to the thought leadership in this industry. All right. So we're going to bring on Chioma Nnaji. She is a professional, I said public health professional, who has about 20 years of experience, just like me, girl, in the HIV/AIDS field and other fields in health, really big on the intersection between public health, racial justice, and immigrant rights. She has her master's degree in public health in international health from Boston University, and a master's degree in education in curriculum and instruction from Boston College. She's working toward her doctorate in global inclusion. So I know she dissertated and probably like, Lord, please let me finish this thing. And her doctorate is in global inclusion and social development at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. She's passionate about her work, which I feel like a lot of us that go into this work are, and is committed to bringing the voice and needs of communities of color to the table of health policy, research, and service delivery. Yes, we are going to bring her on. Come on. Woo! Mama. Hey. How are you doing? I am so good. How are you? I'm excited to have you.
I am good. I'm glad to be here. I always wonder like what the bio is going to be, because I'm like, where did somebody pull it? Did I send it? I can't remember. So I'm like, what they going to say? Oh, okay.
Luckily for me, when I Googled your name, it was like, boop. I was like, thank you. Pictures, bios, all the things. I was like, okay, you that girl. All the stuff was just showed right on up. So I'm glad.
Oh, it's working. Okay.
Right. And that's always, I think that too, like, okay, finally the stuff that I'm doing, somebody is looking and paying attention. So yes, you are all up in the Google. So so happy to have you. And I will also want to say thank you for, it's 3 hours later. Where you at?
Yeah, it's all right. It ain't midnight. We still good.
I appreciate you. And so you and I talked earlier. We kind of had a pre-podcast kind of discussion, and I think both you and I are concerned, worried, and sort of keeping watch on what's happening in our industry that we both love. And I think for me, I love it so much that I'm very critical of it. And I don't know if you feel the same, but like, oh, it's so much happening. And how would you describe the current state of public health in the United States, especially under this interesting administration?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can use the F word, right? Like that's where we're at. And one of the things that I've really started reflecting on is how can I look at this from a both and perspective? Because I think right now, of course, all of us are sort of struggling in this moment, right? Either we've lost our jobs, or we have, loved ones who have lost their jobs, or I have colleagues who I love and adore who have lost like their whole research portfolio because of, cuts in NIH funding. I have colleagues who are trying to refigure out their consultant, their work, the consultancy, because of this whole, erasure of DEI, or what is thought to be DEI, and equity work. And so we know we're in a hard time. And so how are we thinking about this time in terms of both and, right? The fact that it is difficult, it is ugly, it is challenging, and what we can do. And how do we use this as an opportunity? And how do we think about this different so that it works for us and we don't feel as though we are being strained and pulled, times 3, right? Because we're already strained and pulled, right? Because of the work that we do. And how do we think about this and sort of ensure that when we come out on the other side, because we're going to come out on the other side, right? It's going to be for the good of what we need to do and for the communities that we love.
Absolutely, I agree. We gonna be all right. I think I said that in the end of one of my videos. I said Kendrick said we gonna be all right, and I believe we gonna be all right. Now, some would argue that this is just business as usual, and in fact, if y'all follow me on social media, my LinkedIn video from the other day said, "Baby, this is default to factory reset. This is a hard reset for public health because of the origins of public health. If you understand the history of the evolution of public health in the United States." But I mean, I think there may be a different spin on it. What do you think, Chioma? Like, I feel like it is a reset of default settings, but there seems to be something different. What are your feelings on it?
Yeah, so I think that, I went to a conference last year. It was actually a Race Forward conference. And so one of the speakers said, was asked a question like, 2016 is just like 2016, right? Like, are we going to, deal with the same harsh sort of rhetoric and policies and all that thing? And the person said, no, it's worse. It's worse than 2016, right? And so at that point, I started sort of reflecting on what is this moment? What is this moment for, everybody, but then also what is this moment for me? And so I do think that we've been here before in a way in which we had to build systems outside of the system because the system didn't work for us. And when I say us, I'm talking about brown and Black folks, right? And so we've done that, right? We know about the Black Panther movement and all of the ways in which it elevated public health. It was a public health program, right? It was the beginning of free lunches in schools, right? Like, it really brought forth some of the more social services that we are doing now. And so we know that we have the ability as Black folks to build our own systems, right? And also for me, I think that we have that in our DNA, right? We have that in our DNA. We have that in our history. But this generation, right, the you and I's, we haven't had to do it, right? Do it to the extent that our ancestors, even, do it to the extent that my grandmother, right? I do it to the extent that my great grandmother had to do it, right? And so I think in that way, we are approaching something new and different. Not that we can't do it, but we can't walk in saying like, oh, we've done this before, because we haven't really. But we can learn from what has been done and apply what worked and even learn from what didn't work to make this moment different for us.
I agree. And I think that one of the interesting things is I'm starting to understand why it's been so important for this administration to take our history away from us.
Absolutely.
Because then we lose the playbook, right? Unless we are very cognizant and intentional in making sure we pass that down the way that we used to generationally by, we're going to storytell, we're going to talk it. We ain't going to write it or put it in a museum. We going to have a conversation. And so I think you're right. Like, this is an opportunity for us to unfortunately experience what our ancestors experienced, but I think now we do have more tools that could benefit us. I think we just got to I feel like we might have to work a little harder to get on the same page, because I feel like in some ways those tools are helpful, but in some ways they can also be harmful to us because we we're not gatekeeping in the way that we should be gatekeeping.
Yeah.
We're selling out the like no shh, like everybody don't need to know this. So it's an interesting time I feel like we're in, and I feel like this is such a integral, important moment where we could go one way or the other. Like, let's please make sure we hit the right direction. What are some of the consequences of what we see happening now? And we know the answer to this, but I'm asking what you say. What are the consequences of these policies and practices and things that are happening on Black and Brown and Indigenous communities? What's going to happen to us?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we know, right? Like the folks who are most marginalized are going to be more marginalized, right? And so whether we're talking about brown and Black folks, whether we're talking about trans folks, whether we're talking about, LGBTQ folks, like the folks, poor folks, right? Like the people who are already struggling to not thrive. I'm talking about struggling to live, right? To be safe in where they live, right? To be able to access the healthcare or services that they need, or to be able to even, get food for the day, right? Like, we know that these individuals are the ones that are going to struggle in this moment the most, right? And I think it's important for us to think about it in various degrees, right? And for me, it's about how we thinking about the privilege that we hold and how we use that privilege to address some of these issues, right? Especially those of us who are privileged with letters behind our names. We got that. It's important to acknowledge that gives us a level of privilege, a level of access that others don't. It doesn't mean we ain't struggling. Doesn't mean that, this isn't hitting us in ways, but it also means that we sit in a different position. So how are we using that in order to support what we know needs to happen so that communities that we care about and that we love and that we fight for every day do not struggle as much as we know that it could potentially be because of this new administration and these messed up policies.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, before we go to break, one of the things that is interesting, kind of what you said about, even though we might have those letters after our names, we still, can feel the struggle and understand it in a way maybe that others don't. But someone reached out to me and said, "Aren't you scared?" And I was scared of what? Because I guess that video was a little, I was like, listen.
You went in.
And my response, to be perfectly honest, I said, I probably should be. I said, but I'm not. And I think it's because it's like, I just know, like, I can't not speak. Like, how can I not say anything, knowing what I know and understanding what I understand? I have to talk. So I don't know. I think that kind of gives credence to what you said. Like, yeah, we got the degrees and stuff, but like, this stuff impacts us too. I mean, we have jobs or are worried about losing our jobs and things like that, just like anybody else. So, and we also understand what's going on from a level that maybe other folks don't. So it's like we actually are living it, and we can kind of see it in a way that's a little bit, more different. Last question before we go to commercial.
Let me just say something about that, about fear, because I think that we hold fear in a way in which it's like something that stops us and hinders us. But what does it mean if we switch that and say, okay, yes, like this is a scary moment, right? It's scary. Like, no, there's no reason to sort of say that it isn't. And how am I going to move with that knowledge and with that feeling and with that emotion, right? Fear could be a motivator. Fear could be the reason why we are pushing so hard, the reason why we're so passionate. Fear could be the reason why you are not going to stop what we know needs to happen, right? So fear doesn't have to be something that hinders us. It can actually be the thing that fuels us and makes us, supports us in doing what we know we need to do.
Absolutely. And for me, it's like, I don't necessarily feel fearful. I'm like, I'm not anything. I've never said nothing that's a lie. I'm like, I'm just saying the truth. I'm just telling it like it is. Like, these are facts. I done gave you the article. Go read it. Go read Dr. Oppenheimer. This is what he said. Right. So for me, I'm like, I'm just telling you. I don't know. So what do you think the history books of the future will say about this moment in relation in the public health textbooks 20 years from now? What will they say about this moment?
Let me tell you what I want them to say. I want them to say that it was a moment that people resisted and people overcame. And on the other side, we made the world a better place, right? That's what I want the history. Like, this is the moment for us to freedom dream, to keep us in the space of hope, to keep us in the space of faith, right? Because we're going to need that. We've only had 2-3 months, and then we're like, oh shit, like what's going on? Like, it's only been like 2 or 3 months, like it just started, right? And so we're gonna need to be able to sit down and say, like, what does that freedom dream look like? And that's what I want to be in the newspapers. That's what I want to be in the history books. Like, yes, it was ugly. Yes, it was harmful. They resisted, they fought, and they got exactly what they needed so that communities will be all right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. I was talking to I don't know if you know Dorian Johnson. He's the public health uncle on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I've seen some of his videos. Yeah.
So he had made a post. I forgot exactly what it was about, but I said something like, I mean, I know, some of us believe that the systems need to be destroyed and rebuilt, but a lot of us are like, we didn't mean tear down, like we didn't mean do it like this, but I said something like, but this also is our opportunity to rebuild the way that it needs to be rebuilt. Again, the system isn't broken, but it does need to be rebuilt because it's working for people that it's not working for us. So we need to make it make sense for us. And so this might be, even though this is really hurtful and hard and scary, this might be the moment where we can begin to say, if, to your point, if we do this the right way, what does that look like? And I think that's the exciting part about it, even though we're in the midst of a lot of chaos. So we are going to go to break. And when we come back, got a few more questions for you.
All right.
Hey, it's Pastor Kim from It's Just Kim Live Show, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
What's going on, y'all? It's Kwame Speaks from Kwame Speaks Live, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
All right, and we are back. I mean, this conversation, I mean, I'm already, as you're talking, I'm hearing all these little gems and I'm like, oh, we need to capture those clips. We post these later on because this is really, really, really important. We're having a really, really important conversation about public health today and just what's going on and all the things are just coming up in this conversation. So I'm really excited to have you here, Chioma. Thank you so much for being able to talking to me. I'm so excited. What role should public health professionals, especially the Black and brown ones, the trans, the LGBTQ, what should we be thinking about? What should we be doing right now? What we doing?
Yeah, that's a big question. That's a big question. It's a hard question because I think we're all trying to figure that out. Like, what is the what, right? What do we need to be doing? And I think that we need to be assessing what we can do, right? Because I don't want us to feel as though because it's so hard that we can't do anything. What's interesting, today I was in a meeting and one of my colleagues, he said, doing nothing isn't self-care, right? So we're in this phase, right, around sort of self-care, and we need to take care of us, which I agree with. And sometimes people are like, oh, all this stuff is happening. Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I need to protect my peace. That ain't got nothing to do with me, right? But that ain't self-care. It's actually you contributing to the destruction that's happening, right? And so how are we thinking about, in this hard time, what we can do? And that has a lot to do with what is our sort of space of influence, what does our privilege look like? But I guarantee you, everybody can do something. Whether that means, if you're that person that's running the data, how are you looking at that data so that you can show the impacts of the executive orders that have been coming down, right? Or if you're somebody who is responsible for keeping the building clean, how are you ensuring that you're doing that every day, right? And supporting, like, the facilities to be the space that it needs to be as people walk in, right? It might be having a hard day, right? But you're holding this space for people to find joy in some kind of way, right? That small corner that's so clean, right? That they can sit there and meditate for a minute, right? Like, we all have a role in this. And I don't think any piece of that role is small. And so we have to sit down and ask ourselves, what is our role? The other question we have to ask ourselves is what we're willing to sacrifice. And that's usually hard. That usually sacrifice means you giving up something, right? Sacrifice means it ain't coming easy for you. And so what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice your job for speaking out? Right? Are you willing to sacrifice, a friend, someone who you thought was a friend, because that person has political views that can harm people who look like you? Right? Like, what are you willing to sacrifice in this moment? Because we need folks who are willing to sacrifice, because that's the level of hard work that we have to do. That's the level of hard work we have to do.
And I think it can be really hard because, people are not willing to sacrifice their jobs. I mean, I'm not. So, and that's to be perfectly honest, right? But it's like, but there might be someone that may be okay with that. Maybe it's close to retirement. I'm leaving anyway. What you want me to say? What you want me to tell the people?
Right. Or,
right.
That's that being strategic, right? That's that being strategic, because I'm also somebody who says, like, I'm not paying your bills, so I'm not going to pass judgment on what you can and cannot do, right? So if you're not willing to stand up because you know that you need to pay that mortgage at the end of the month and you ain't got no other means to pay that mortgage, I hear you. So let's talk about what you can do, right? Because, that's what we saw a lot in the BLM, movement, right? Like, post George Floyd's murder, right? Like, that's what we saw. People passing judgment on how people are getting in the movement, right? How people are responding, how people are activating themselves, right? And we have to let that go. We have to let that go. We have to let that judgment and that pointing fingers go, because part of that is stripping us from being able to work in solidarity, right? Being able to work in solidarity. If you read about how sort of the bus boycott was strategically put together, people were in strategic places to make strategic things happen. Not everybody was walking to their jobs, right? Not taking a bus. Like, so we have to think strategically about how we're going to do this. And I personally believe that means people are working inside and people are working outside the system.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, I've even learned from modern day, folks that are, activists and protest and do things, somebody's going to volunteer. Yes, I'll get arrested. I'm going to be in the front. I'm going to put my body on the line. And then somebody got to be in the back cooking. Somebody got to be, with the list.
Water, right.
Somebody got to, you talked about the person that's cleaning the building. Somebody got to make sure stuff is clean and make sure stuff is. Right. So you're right. You just have to know where your lane is and what you're willing to sacrifice and offer up and be. And I think what you're talking about also reminds me of my research on psychological safety, right? That for some of us, especially Black folk, baby, we there's a consequence to speaking out, to pushing back. And so, like you said, we have to make these almost constant decisions on what am I going to step up or step back? But like you said, ain't no sense in being mad at somebody. Well, maybe they're better. They know how to cook real good. Maybe they're the cook, or maybe they're the one that watch the kids, or maybe they're, so we just have to realize what we do well and just take it and make sure that happens. And I think that also works in advocacy, and get that word out and push the movement forward.
Absolutely.
And speaking of advocacy, and I have to circle back. That was a question I had and I forgot to state it. What does public health advocacy look like today in this moment? Again, where people have lost their jobs, where people are afraid to speak out because of, your funding might get pulled. So what does advocacy look like in this space today?
I mean, one of the things that we have at our fingertips is the ability to utilize research and the position of the academy, right? And we see public health at the community level, right? I come out of community organizing work, particularly the HIV/AIDS work. And so understanding the power of community-based organizations, grassroots organizations. So I think the beauty of public health is that we move across a lot of sectors, all sectors, if not a lot, all sectors and all levels, right? And so advocacy could look like you publishing an editorial or a commentary about the impact of a specific executive order on a community that you partner with, right? That could be advocacy, right? Advocacy could also look like if you are teaching a course in the academy. Advocacy could look like what is the type of literature that you are bringing into your courses to help students do critical thinking about this time, right? And advocacy definitely for me is where I do a lot of my work, specifically around sort of social impact, working with social impact leaders and organization, is how are we building partnerships across sectors and across communities and across organizations? Because it's the power of sectors where we're going to be able, partnerships, it's the power of partnerships where we're going to be able to leverage resources, where we're going to get sort of the best thinking that we have, right? The most comprehensive strategies that we have, right? So we're thinking about the impact on education, the impact on health, and the impact of transportation, right? Because we'll have all these folks in the room thinking about like, what are the best comprehensive strategies for us to implement now to deal with what we know is going to come down the line, or is currently happening and what's going to come down the line, right? And so I think public advocacy also includes partnerships. I think the core of it is partnerships, and how are we making sure that these partnerships are strong enough that they're able to sustain as well as have a critical impact.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really important. And I know depending on the jurisdiction or depending on where you are, sometimes it can be hard to get those cross-sector collaborations together because, for one thing, folks speak a different language, right? Say you're a local health department and you're trying to collaborate with the fire department, and nobody. First, we got to figure out what we saying to each other, because it's like, I don't understand you.
Right.
Their motivations are different, or their goals are different, but it's like once you get to those core values, oftentimes that really helps a lot. Like, listen, we have a population of people here that need services, they need help, they need resources. Right. The same person that's walking into the office for food stamps is the same person that's going to the public health clinic for their STD or TB testing, is the same person that's, on Vick, is the same person that calls the fire department for their health care because they don't have health insurance. I remember being on the city health commission, and the medical director of the fire department said most of our fire calls now are not they're for the paramedics, because people are, don't have access to health care, and we're literally like their health care. We come in there and give them their, their diabetic, whatever, the glucose or whatever. So I'm like, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. And so we're, like you said, we're seeing the same folks are coming into all these doors. So how do we make sure we're talking to each other and trying to coordinate resources, because nobody has anything, right? We're all like, the money is like low. How do we make this?
It was already low. It's lower. Like, nobody funds public health, So we need to be savvy in how we're leveraging resources.
Try to make $1 out of 15 cents. That's, and we know how to do that because we've had our ancestors had to do that. So it's like, let's leverage that knowledge, that thought leadership around that kind of stuff and be creative. So yeah, we got some work. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, you have a wonderful business that you are running. And I think it in some ways is very much linked to what we're talking about. And you kind of alluded to it about writing and editorials and things. Can you talk about that and give folks, some thoughts about, especially our public health professionals that may be listening, like, here's some ways to kind of get your ideas out into the world.
Yeah, great. So the company is called the Script Lab. You can check us out on LinkedIn. And so the Script Lab is really about how do we support public health practitioners, whether you're in an academy, whether you're in community, whether you're a student, how do we support you in publishing, right? Publishing in academic journals. I think knowledge production has been a way to oppress people, right? Because we feel as though knowledge production belongs to a certain group of folks, right? Who might not look like me, who might not have the letters behind my name, who might not have the number of experiences, who might not sit in the same position, the position in the academy, right? But we're here to say that publishing, academic publishing, is accessible to everybody, right? And it actually is a vehicle to build your thought leadership as well as your advocacy, and actually to expand your impact, the impact of your work, right? And so what does that look like? That means that you can publish around, of course, research. But research isn't the only thing that you publish. It's not the only thing that you can publish. You can publish about your idea, right? Like if we sit here and we pull like, oh my God, like, oh, Nicole, that was a dope idea we just talked about. Let's write it up as an editorial, right? You can publish about practice, what you're doing in your practice, right? What you're seeing in your practice is sometimes in journals it's called notes from the field, right? There is a wide range of things you can publish. Of course, it still requires that academic rigor, right? But it's not something that isn't accessible to people. And I think that has been, that was my own struggle. When I finished my master's, I had to do a thesis. When I finished it, my committee chair was like, oh, you have to publish this. I was like, huh? I ain't got time to be publishing. Like, you don't see them people out there, like, they need support. Saying I went right into community organizing, not realizing the power of writing and manuscript publishing, right? And so I figured out, based on my values, based on my writing principles, the kind of manuscripts I want, academic manuscripts I want to publish. Very clear. And the journals that would take them, that would accept them, right? And journals now, even during this time, there are journals like the American Journal of Public Health, which I sit as a associate editor on their board. There are journals like American Journal of Public Health that are saying that the executive orders, the censorship around equity and all these words, we are not playing into that, because we believe in scientific rigor. We believe in the power of writing. We believe in the power of people speaking truth and the power of research, right? And so we are holding truth to that. And so they're still accepting articles that are talking about structural racism, articles that are talking about inequities, all these things that we need to be talking about. So I encourage public health practitioners, get into that space of writing. Build your thought leadership through that, and build your advocacy around that.
Yeah. And I was about to say, that's a form of advocacy too. And so even for somebody like me, listen, when I broke this ankle and everything that happened to me in the healthcare system, I said, listen, one of my friends said to me, I'm sorry that this happened to you, but I'm glad it did. One thing you gonna do, you gonna tell a story. You gonna write about it. Somebody gonna hear about it. And so it's like, that is our way to get the word out. And I would also offer and say, for Black and brown public health professionals who often feel, because my research was on psychological safety, they often feel like they're not being heard. This is a way for our
Absolutely.
stories to be told, right? For our experiences to be made, sort of not valid, because I don't think it needs to be published to be valid, but it's like it gets it out there so that other people can see it and say, oh crap, that's it. I thought that was just me. Or, oh, wait a minute. And they can have another thought about it. Well, if this says this, I wonder what happens if I study this. Like for me, mine was Black local health department employees. And in my recommendations, I said, you might want to talk to Black gay public health employees, Black trans public health employees. You might want, there's a whole, what about employees that have retired? What were their experiences? Like, I'm like, there's so much that we can be thinking about. So I'm grateful that you're doing this work and making it sort of tangible for people, like, because it can seem very much like, oh my gosh, this seems so doable. You're like, no, this is doable, and I'm glad.
Very tangible. Yes, very tangible. I mean, my own journey, I had to learn what kind of writing works for me, and so, we hold workshops, we do one-on-one coaching to make it accessible for folks, right? Everything from let's talk about your idea to let's think about what is the best journal for you, and then let's go through the submission process, right? There are a lot of ways in which, this system needs to be decolonized. No lie. Like the system is set up for certain knowledge not to be, published, right? We know that. Right. And so we're breaking the system by saying we belong here, and we're going to make sure that our voice and our ideas and our thoughts and our work is visible.
Yep, absolutely. How can people access the Script Lab? Where can they find more information?
So find more information at the Script Lab on LinkedIn. That's the best place. You can also email me directly at chioma@ultratransformations.com. And you can check me out on LinkedIn too. You can get all that on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Last question. What gives you hope even now in the face of so much hostility, so much negativity around the work? I think that, again, I said this earlier, that I feel like we hold so close to our hearts. I know you are as passionate about public health as I am. So what gives you hope in this moment where it's like, what in the heck is going on?
Yeah, I've been intentional. So my word for this year is joy. I've been intentional on putting myself in spaces where I'm in community, because I know being in community brings me joy. And that could be being in community with folks who are doing the work and thinking about the work the way that I am. It could be in community and serving community, but I know that being in community keeps me grounded, it keeps me focused, and it lets me know that we're going to be all right. It lets me know that we're going to get to the other side. So definitely what brings me hope is being in community. Yeah.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure to have you, Chioma. I'm so join me tonight. It went by too fast. We might have to have you come back at some other time, but I'm so grateful for having you. All right, y'all, we're going to end this episode. Thank you for joining me. You know where to find me. I have a fabulous website, www.NicoleDVick.com. On that website, you can find all sorts of things. I have a playlist of podcast episodes that I have been a guest on in the past. You can also actually access this podcast on my website as well. There's art written. I've written proud of myself. I be writing. I be doing things. I got review journal tip though, so we'll get on that soon. You can also buy copies of my book. I said book, child. I got books.
Come on,
push it through, finding the light in every lesson. Push through 52 weeks of light and tough times. And I have a chapter in the anthology, Triumph in the Trenches, Navigating the Workforce for Black Professionals. It is the green book for Black folk at work, how to navigate the work. And it's not just public health. This is all types of work. I am on social media. I'm back on LinkedIn. So I've been talking. And when I get on there, I'm like, let me tell you something. Listen here. So follow me there. Less so on Instagram, less so on TikTok, but LinkedIn is definitely where I'm at. All right, y'all. I will see you next week. Again, thank you, Chioma. I will see y'all next week. I don't know what I'm talking about next week, but I'll see you. It's gonna be
good though. It's gonna be good.
Exactly. That's what it's gonna be good though. All right, you guys. Good night.
Thank you for watching Pyro Media Network. For more information, please visit pyromedianetwork.com.